My Little Pony, Pokemon, The Owl House, Kingdom of Hearts, Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure, Star vs. the Forces of Evil, She-Ra, Steven Universe, Avatar. The one thing these all share in common is that they're created for young children, being designed fundamentally with the intention of attracting them. They also form the bulk of Lily Orchard's content, both on YouTube and Tumblr, which, considering her history of inappropriate behaviour with minors, is incredibly dangerous. Though before we can delve deeper into that, I first need to give a content warning for the following topics: child grooming, sexually explicit text, blurred sexual imagery, gaslighting, victim blaming, and indecent exposure. If you like our work and appreciate the research put into each video, please consider supporting the channel via Patreon. You can also support us by liking, commenting, and sharing our work on social media. Hi there, my name's Ethel Thurston, and we're here to talk about the ways in which Lily Orchard grooms the minors in her audience into engaging with her and her girlfriends sexually. This video is a follow-up on my previous expose in which we discussed Lily Orchard encouraging her then friend, Josh Scorcher, to groom Ink Rose, then age 17, which he ultimately did. And whilst Josh bears full responsibility for preying on Ink Rose, it is also important that we don't forget how people, such as Lily, normalised and advocated for said grooming. So that video is certainly worth a look if you have the time. However, this is not the only time Lily has encouraged minors to engage in inappropriate behaviour, nor is it her most blatant violation. And whilst we will unpack Lily's approach as a whole regarding her content and the way in which she grooms all minors within her audience, I want to cut straight to the chase and get to first-hand testimony by one of Lily's victims, Glade, who some of you might know as the graceful writer.
Hi, I'm Glade. I'm a 20-year-old who joined Lily's Discord about 3 years ago while I was 17. I was a fan of Lily because I was sorely lacking in remoteless leftist content on YouTube, and at that point, I was already watching her content because I liked her analysis of TV shows. At the point of blaming groom, I was already a thoroughly groomed 16-year-old who had just gotten out of a relationship with the person who was grooming me. This was a clear advantage for Lily, as I watched Blaming Groom's addendum, and she showed that her Discord was a safe place for abused and groomed people. So I joined the server hoping to build a support system of people who understood abuse and grooming. This was not the case, as had he even said in the rules that you couldn't discuss personal stories in the group lobbies. Instead of the mental health support I expected, and quite frankly needed, I was instead constantly worried about somehow breaking the vaguely worded rules and would get insta-banned from the server. So I would do everything I could to get into Lily's good graces. She posted a live stream in the server, I'd watch it and then comment on it in the server after. She said she had a story in a call, on the first one on it. Then she posted a stream in the server that was age restricted. I was 17, so I didn't want to be exposed to anything that I shouldn't have. Lily should have known I was 17 since I didn't make it a secret while I was in the server. So I asked her why it was age restricted. She responded with, "Watch and you'll find out." So I thought it couldn't be too bad, because she wouldn't tell me, a minor, to watch something that I'm not supposed to watch. She actually did expose me to something I should not have been seeing. Every time a girlfriend of hers told her to, she lifted her top, showing the entire stream her bare chest. I should mention that this is while she was playing a Pokemon game. A game that is very obviously children's IP. I had to stop watching her streams after this instance for a few months, until I turned 18 at least.
I should note, we have screenshots from said event, which I have blurred for obvious reasons. I also found this stream from the day after, showing Lily in the same room and clothes, just to confirm that it is her in the previous photo. Later I found confirmation from Lily Orchard herself with this post from the day after, acknowledging the event on Tumblr, with Lily defending her actions whilst hiding that she knowingly targeted a minor. So what Glade stated is corroborated by multiple pieces of evidence that I was able to find independent of said testimony. I also think it's worth noting that Lily Orchard herself has stated in no unclear fashion that she believes the age of consent being lower than 18 is why so many predators can get off scot-free, because their actions likely weren't even crimes to begin with. Before going on to add that, personally, I'm an advocate for the age of consent being 19 in Canada, as it's also the age where you can use recreational drugs, alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, gamble, and are emancipated from your parents. So even if you want to make the ridiculous argument that Lily wasn't deliberately grooming Glade because she didn't personally consider them a minor, that's just not true. By Lily's own declared standard, Glade, who was known to be 17 at the time, was a minor when Lily Orchard targeted them. But it gets worse, for you see, Lily's server has a specifically designated Not Safe for Work section that you gain access to by joining her heroic tier on Patreon. This implies that the rest of her server is safe for work and thus won't contain any sexual content as specified in the server's rules. Do note, said screenshot was taken in 2020, so she might have updated said rules since. Now, when talking to Glade, they made it clear to me that they, the minor in the situation, took the responsibility to make sure that they didn't have access to any of the channels dubbed Not Safe for Work. This is in spite of the fact that said responsibility should never have even been offered to them. It is Lily Orchard's responsibility alone to make sure minors do not gain access to said spaces. Getting personal for a second, I run a kink server completely detached from my work here, and I vet every member's age at the door, without moderators, without pay, in spite of the fact that I do not regularly review children's media. Because that is my damn responsibility as a member of a community. But Lily refuses to take the most basic steps to ensure the safety of minors in her audience. That's why nowhere on Lily's Patreon does it even mention that you'll be gaining access to Not Safe for Work spaces if you pledge to her heroic tier, merely that you'll gain access to locked channels, same as the legacy tier, which doesn't give you access to Not Safe for Work channels. It's why she puts the onus on the person to have them inform Lily to opt out. And I bring all this up since the link, the one to the stream in which Lily Orchard planned to flash her audience every time her girlfriends told her to, was deliberately posted to the Safe for Work section of her Discord server. I repeat, just so you know I haven't misspoken. Lily Orchard posted a link to a stream in which she planned to flash the audience in the Safe for Work section, a place where Lily not only knew there were minors, but people in general who do not wish to engage with sexual content and had gone out of their way to opt out of it. So even before we get to the fact that she personally told Glade, a minor, to watch and find out that she has these channels and yet flaunts their designations alone is more than enough to demonstrate that this was no accident, this wasn't an oversight, this was deliberate. She knew about the line, hell, she'd chosen to include it in her rules. And yet, when she felt like nobody was looking, she violated her audience's trust. Because Lily Orchard is deliberately trying to funnel minors into her sex games whilst retaining plausible deniability. That's all these channels exist for, to act as a soft excuse, something for her to roll out and pretend like she's taking steps to prevent minors from engaging with her sexually, allowing her to breach the trust said system is reliant upon whenever she feels like it, deleting the evidence to make sure it's difficult for her to be called out. What's worse, however, is a way in which she personally coerced Glade, a known minor who looked up to Lily as an authority on grooming and abuse, to partake in her and her girlfriend's sexual games. Because yes, they are complicit. This was a one-on-one interaction with a minor who came to Lily's Discord to try and heal from previous grooming, only for them to be targeted by Lily in a similar fashion. Once again, the fact that Glade was forced to be the responsible one as a minor, asking why a stream posted to the server's Safe for Work section had been age restricted, is remarkable on Glade's part. It is not the sort of behaviour I expect from a minor, and even if they hadn't taken that initiative, they wouldn't be responsible in any way whatsoever for Lily's predatory actions. That is something I need to be absolutely clear about. And speaking of that initiative, I feel the need to remind people of vital context. Namely how, at the time this all happened, YouTube was being dragged very publicly for automatically age-restricting videos and even entire channels that primarily discussed LGBT+ topics, even those doing things as mundane as defining what labels like bisexual or transgender meant. This, of course, is a smaller symptom of a wider issue, the way in which things as innocuous as swearing or as potentially life-saving as LGBT+ resources are classified as mature content by allo-cis-het society. This is why the far right has been so successful in arguing that any mention of LGBT+ existence must be banned from schools or other public spaces. I personally remember trying to look up queer helplines in my school since I had no support at home or at said school, only to discover that they were all blocked on the school's network due to it being inappropriate content. Point is, Glade had absolutely no way of knowing whether Lily's channel had fallen victim to YouTube's algorithm, a fact Lily Orchard is relying on. Said ambiguity is one of the main tools Lily Orchard uses to ensnare her victims whilst retaining plausible deniability, exploiting the loopholes created by queer music society. It's a means of setting up a gotcha, a pre-primed response to be regurgitated endlessly when she comes under scrutiny. Anytime someone brings up the facts that Lily Orchard invited minors to watch a stream in which she secretly intended to flash on camera, with her posting said link to a Safe for Work section, she and her supporters can respond, well, the stream was marked 18+. If a minor ignores that, that's their fault. Lily can't control what her audience does, let alone a minor, conveniently leaving out the greater social context surrounding LGBT+ topics, particularly those hosted on YouTube. This is victim blaming. Lily Orchard is weaponizing societal queermisia to her predatory advantage. Though, speaking of that social context, when taken into consideration, it demonstrates that not only is this line of argument a clear form of victim blaming, but it is predicated on the demand that queer minors isolate themselves from life-saving resources and the LGBT+ community as a whole. Which is absolutely horrific. As queer elders, it's our responsibility to ensure any minors in our community are as safe as possible, especially if the bulk of our content centers on children's media. I really can't stress that last part enough. What's more is, we can also infer intent from Lily's actions by simply considering what any non-predator would have done in the same situation. Lily Orchard could have answered the very straightforward question she was asked by a known minor, or more importantly, would have removed the link to her sexual stream from her Safe for Work section the moment she was questioned on it. But she chose not to. The fact that she didn't do either of these things when it was brought to her attention shows a very specific, very deliberate style of behaviour. She chose to manipulate her victim into the position she wanted them, whilst also ensuring she had an excuse ready to go the moment she got called out on it, which she did. And what's worse is, she's not alone. I can fucking guarantee that a number of Lily Orchard's fans are, the moment they see this, getting ready to victim blame a queer minor. This is in spite of the fact that, even by the standards of the truly fucked up society we live in, Glade was the perfect victim that the media demands, in that they were a minor who, when repeatedly put in sexual situations by an adult, remove themselves from the situation. There is no ambiguity here, but Lily's core fanbase will try to invent some because that's the dynamic she has cultivated. And if you're someone who came here to do that and you've watched this far, I ask you to take a damn look at yourself and question what led you here. And that's not just a rhetorical, I actually mean it. Thing is, this is not a rare occurrence. Lily Orchard is constantly grooming the minors inside her audience, and yes, she knows they're there. That's why she goes so far as to address them directly, as seen in this clip taken from her Glass of Water episode, Guard Break.
If you're a child watching this right now and you're being bullied in school, here's what you do. You demand that your bully cease their behavior, and if they refuse, grab the heaviest object you can reliably swing and beat their fucking teeth in. Yeah, you'll get suspended, but that suspension will end and that bully will never bother you again because of how much that beating actually hurt.
She's also received messages like the one currently shown on screen, sent to her Tumblr last year, stressing that they've been watching her since they were a 9-year-old child. This is no accident, by the way. Both the intellectual property she touches on and many of the topics she covers, from writing tips to bullying, are going to attract a younger audience. On top of this, her style of presentation, both in the visual she uses and her emotionally charged yet rather simplistic language, are all designed to cater to teenagers and children. So Lily not only knows there are children in her audience, she goes out of her way to lure them in. Which begs the question, why is Lily set on constantly exposing those very same children to graphic sexual content? Let's go over some examples, starting with this post to Lily's official Tumblr, which to be clear, is not marked as not safe for work in any way. It's always nice to appreciate how much of a stupid whore Lily is. Honestly, there's little doubt in my mind that I could bend you over and fuck your tight little ass raw, and you just moan and gasp. Cause at the end of the day, you just want to be a masochistic little fuckhole, free for use with a polite word and a strong grip. Hell, the politeness isn't even necessary. To which Lily simply replied with an open-eyed emoticon. And whilst you might go, okay, well, she is not the one who wrote such a graphic message, it's key to remember that she has complete creative control over said space. She has to personally approve every question, and this isn't even a once-off. There are dozens of messages like this in the span of a single month. Messages Lily encourages along with ones in which she tells her audience that there's even a chance of things moving forward to more one-on-one interactions. Reminder that this is on a Tumblr which primarily focuses on reviewing and exploring children's content. The number of lewd posts should be 0. And it's not just sexual messages, it's also images, like this one showing Lily getting hammered by a magic wand, a vibrator about the size of my forearm. Lily shared this image to her entire audience, minors included. And while she tagged it not safe for work, that doesn't actually do anything to prevent the minors in her audience from seeing it. It just makes it easier to find using the search options. Now, Lily subsequently removed this piece because she began to receive heat for it, so she knows what she is doing is wrong, and yet this behaviour continues. Last year, I noticed that Lily was streaming Kingdom of Hearts, and so I clicked it out of curiosity. That's when I noticed this in the description of her stream. Sexual comments directed at Lily are fine, do not involve her friends/partners. Now we know exactly what it is Lily is encouraging here, the sort of pornographic writing she seeks from her audience. So you can imagine my horror to discover that, as I logged out, said stream of a children's game wasn't locked behind any sort of age barrier, having been marked as safe for all ages. Note my horror, not my surprise. And you want to know the truly terrifying thing? There appears to have been a minor in the audience of that stream, with one of the people stating, "Alright guys, I gotta go to school." To which other audience members responded by wishing them a good day. This happened right after I dragged Lily, yet not one person in her audience stopped to question that. Another thing that's worth noting is what happened when I pointed out what she was doing. whilst Lily put on a public display, calling me a TERF.
Another day, another pathetic fucking TERF. Who is this guy? Oh, Essence is some weird fucking TERF channel.
Whilst misgendering me.
Oh yeah, where it says, sexual comments directed at Lily or Fi do not fall for friends or partners. Whatever, dude.
And telling me that I was being reductive for calling a game designed for children a kids game.
Also, actually, fuck yeah. Also, kids game, that's rather reductive, isn't it?
That line in the description of her stream suddenly vanished. Now, this wasn't because I'd helped Lily see the error of her ways. If that were the case, she would have done so without attempting to assassinate my character to her audience. She removed it because her actions were being scrutinized, and she had no actual defense. Lily Orchard knows that her arguments about being reductionist can't stand up to scrutiny, since, hey, just because it's designed for children doesn't mean you, an adult, can't enjoy it. It simply means you shouldn't base your entire brand around such content before going on to create a hypersexual environment, well aware of the facts that you are drawing minors to your seriously fucked up community. Which brings me to what seems to be Lily's primary defense regarding this behavior, her rampant whataboutism.
You're engaging sexually with your audience. Name 5 YouTubers who don't do that. ContraPoints does it, James Sterling does it. Sorry, James Stephanie Sterling does it. There's plenty of YouTubers who do that shit. Like, I don't think these fucking freaks even grapple with the concept that it's not a crime to be vulgar. Excuse me, ma'am, but you're swearing.
Notice how Lily has completely shifted the actual issue here. I was talking about her engaging sexually with minors in her audience, which, by the end of her rant, has been downgraded to swearing. But more importantly, the differences between Lily Orchard and content creators like Natalie Wynn and James Stephanie Sterling are the facts that A, their entire brand and marketing isn't centered on children's content, meaning that the standards for their community are completely different, and B, they don't encourage their audience members to engage with them sexually. There's a difference between using innuendo in your videos and telling people it's okay to sext you. It's genuinely amazing to see how fast Lily Orchard rushes in to butcher the context here. The issue is not her being sexual online. Again, I run a kink server. The issue is her deliberately creating a hypersexualized environment that, on the outside, is extremely attractive to children she has acknowledged herself in her work. Though I haven't even discussed the worst part in all of this, Lily has confessed that people in her audience regularly send her naked photos of themselves. And while she claims to delete them all, there's no fucking way to check that. This is the same person who went out of her way to violate the security of the Safe for Work section she set up on her server. How can we be sure she doesn't keep them? And how the living fuck can we be certain that none of the minors she has groomed have fallen victim to this? The sad fact is, we can't. All we can do is act on the facts that Lily Orchard is simultaneously putting out posts like these, whilst also grooming the minors in her audience. She is planting this thought in their minds, telling the minors in her audience that sending her naked photos of themselves is a safe way to explore their sexuality. Something else we need to discuss is how Lily Orchard doesn't simply lure in minors, but target specific groups, namely child victims of bullying, domestic abuse, and sexual abuse. I've already shown the video taken from Guardbreak, a video that touches on the topic of bullying, something which primarily impacts children and is thus going to draw them in. And it's worth discussing the way in which bullying manifests itself in the victim, namely the way it can erode an individual's sense of self-worth whilst normalizing abusive behavior. Victims of bullying are ripe for grooming, with predators using their victims' insecurities as a means to gain their trust and hook them by making them feel valued and desired. Mantras like, "You're mature for your age," whilst enticing to many children, are particularly attractive to children who feel disconnected from their peers due to things like bullying. It not only offers them an explanation, but validation, telling them that they're simply ahead of the curve. We also have the facts that Lily discusses LGBT+ topics, and that, coupled with her general brand, is going to attract young members of said community, people who are not only more likely to experience bullying, but potentially family abuse and even abandonment. And I can get why. Lily's content can be very cathartic. Her public displays of anger, genuine or not, will be the first time many queer minors has seen such a display, and that can be very intoxicating, to finally have someone tell you that you're not the problem, it's the world which is fucked. Something that, likewise, increases their vulnerability to her. Then we have Lily Orchard's anti-pedophilia content, kicked off on the 30th of January 2018 with the release of Glass of Water, Blame and Groom, covering toon critic Y2K's grooming and sexual abuse of underage girls, the widespread tolerance of his sexual harassment of women in the pony community, and how these things are connected. In the space of 1 year and 7 months, she went on to release an additional 7 videos, either relating to the situation with toon critic Y2K or discussing other child groomers or issues of child sexual abuse in the pony community. Glass of Water Addendum, Blame and Groom, Another Pedophile Rises tries to echo enabling nonsense, Call between Josh Scorcher, Patchwork Heart and Lily Pete, FNGR abuses partner, Secret Rift / Limbo joins in, MLP fanfic reading YouTubers post child pornography for years unnoticed, Creepy Starlight fan scams artists, threatens people, and preys on minors, and MLP cons are a hive of child molestation, Glass of Water. And this hasn't gone away, with Lily more recently positioning herself as someone who supports speaking out against abuse fetishists, pedophiles, and bigots in your fanbase, once again driving home this message that she is anti-pedophile and thus safe to be around. Lily's content is tailored to drawing in an incredibly vulnerable group within an already vulnerable group. She is funneling pre-groomed minors into hypersexualized spaces, and if you think I'm reading too much into this, consider the following clip from her second video on Toon Critic, Glass of Water Addendum, Blame and Groom.
The fact of the matter is, Silver Quill and Dr. Wolf have zero experience with abuse, counseling abuse victims, the healing process, or the basic entry-level behavioral psychology that is involved in all of those things. I, on the other hand, have a lot of experience with all of those things. I was abused by my family growing up. I was involved with the mental health field during my own recovery. I spent my late teens and early adulthood involved in youth counseling for a lot of issues from neurodivergence to abuse survivors. I also have a Discord community that has many members involved in it who have dealt with abuse in their lives and are actively involved in the mental health field. Every single claim in this video was fact-checked and debunked multiple times over. When it comes to abuse and healing from abuse, these two know absolutely nothing. They are pulling information directly out of their ass, and they are relying on personal anecdotes and their own spiritual beliefs about how the world should work to gaslight abuse survivors. At first I thought this was well-meaning stupidity, but in light of recent events, I have come to the conclusion that this was genuine malice.
This is a video that led numerous victims of grooming, people like Glade, to join Lily Orchard's server, because Lily Orchard had very purposely led them to believe it was a safe place actually capable of helping victims of grooming and abuse. Yet, not only was that not the case, there are no resources, no support on offer, it is in fact the very same server in which Lily Orchard posts links to sexual streams in the Safe for Work section before pressuring minors into watching. This clip serves no purpose outside of ensuring her a constant stream of fresh meat. Then we have the irony here in how Lily Orchard herself acknowledges the existence of bad actors in this field. This is not something I've just made up, it's something she herself has talked about whilst hiding her own horrific behaviour. Thing is, I've encountered said behaviour before. Some of you might recall I was singled out and sexually assaulted for being trans at the start of 2021. Now, the person responsible, Himadri Barman, worked at Feminism in India as an admin, and upon me coming forward, several other queer women and trans folk stepped forward with similar experiences. Turns out he'd been using his position in said feminist organization to target vulnerable people. This is a thing that happens a lot. Predators will position themselves as oppositional to predators as a means of luring in and ensnaring their victims. It also makes it incredibly hard for Lily Orchard's victims to speak out and receive support because people take her anti-predator stance at face value and use that to discredit said survivors. After all, how can Lily be a predator? She's made 7 videos calling out predators. By declaring herself a lead figure in the fight against predators in children's fandoms, Lily has redirected suspicion away from herself. That is the basis of Lily Orchard's brand. This is not an accident. To support Lily Orchard is to support a predator. That's whether you donate to her Patreon, share her videos, or defend her character. If you do any of that, now that you know the truth, you have made yourself complicit. You have helped Lily Orchard groom the minors in her audience. And I know that this might be hard for some people to hear, specifically those who didn't know and have simply given Lily Orchard the benefit of the doubt due to the amount of hate she receives solely on the basis that she is trans. Because yes, there are people going after Lily Orchard for the wrong reasons, something Lily has used to her advantage, as seen earlier in how the moment I criticised her publicly, she began labelling me a TERF. Me, someone who is not only an anti-assimilationist trans femme, but has also been threatened with lawsuit by 2 heads of the UK TERF movement for documenting and critiquing their transmisia. Yet to those who have given Lily Orchard the benefit of the doubt, I need to say this. The fact that there are bigots out there criticising Lily Orchard in bad faith doesn't magically absolve her of her very real crimes. Something you need to come to terms with. Just like I need you to come to terms with the fact that, as shitty as you might be feeling upon the realization that you have been supporting a predator all these years, that feeling doesn't even register on the scale of harm Lily Orchard has caused her victims. What's more is, it is never too late to change things. You can start fixing at least some of the damage by making sure that as many people are aware of this as possible by any means necessary. Get the news out there. Make people aware of what Lily Orchard has done to people like Glade. Do not let Lily Orchard bury this as she has done her past abusive behaviour. Predators require a degree of control to do what they do and get away with it. For Lily, that came in the form of ambiguity and character assassination. Yet collectively, we have the power to ensure that she doesn't get away with what she's done. So let's get on with it. Lily Orchard grooms her audience, and the people in her community need to know. If you appreciate what we do here and want to help out, please consider becoming one of our wonderful patrons who make all this possible. On that note, we'd just like to thank the following people: Matthew Kovac, Gert Van Vorst, Hannah Banghart, Spike Jones, Flynn, Higgins the Seagull, and Sosh Daniels. And for myself, Adita and Levi, take care now.